So why should you start a nonprofit? I'm going to offer you 3 considerations. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss in a Budget. I help people start their nonprofits. I help people raise money for their startup nonprofits. So if you need help in your startup journey, make sure you are following this channel, you are subscribed to this channel, because I drop videos every single week. And today I just wanted to break down 3 particular reasons why you should start a nonprofit. And I'm going to put a disclaimer out here before I do the 3 reasons. My disclaimer is this. There are some people who will tell you to pursue a nonprofit for a benefit, like a tax benefit or something like that. The reason why I teach on nonprofits is because I believe nonprofits should be put in place to benefit the community, not an individual. So when I come at this, when I talk about nonprofits, I am not coming from hey, this is how you get tax savings. Hey, this is how you do this. That's not really my focus. So if you're thinking in that vein, then maybe you should check out some of the other great YouTubers who are talking about nonprofits. But on this channel, we're talking about nonprofits and people who really want to change the world, and they want to use their nonprofit, their 501c3 status to do that. I just had to put that disclaimer out here just so you know what kind of vibe you're going to get here on this channel when you watch my videos. And also, I know the startup journey may be difficult. You may not know what to do, where to turn, which is why I've created my startup workbook, which helps guide you through the startup process for your nonprofit. So if you need that, just drop in the comments, hey, I need that, and I will send you a link to that workbook. So let's get started. What are 3 reasons you should be thinking about when it comes to starting a nonprofit? The very first reason I would say you need to start a nonprofit is because you want to fill a gap. What do I mean by that? So there are different sectors, right? There's the government sector, there's the for-profit business sector, and then you have what's called sometimes the independent sector or the nonprofit sector. And each one of those sectors plays an important role, and they play their part. But there are some times when the business sector or the government sector can't or won't fulfill the needs of society or fulfill the needs of the local communities. And that's when it's really important for people to identify what's missing, what needs to be done in a community, and step up and provide those services. So I work with the child welfare system, so issues around child abuse and neglect and foster care and adoption and mental health needs and substance abuse treatment are high on the list of needs, but it's really difficult to get quality, effective services. It's hard to find good clinicians. It's hard to find a service that doesn't have a waiting list a mile long. So that's a very concrete example of how, if you're trying to fill a need in a particular community, where you can step up and fill that need, right? So if you know that there are missing services around mental health or substance abuse, you can design a program to address just that. See, one of the issues that I see happen when people want to start their nonprofits, they kind of come from a person-centered place first. So they often come from a place where they're saying, well, I want to do some good and I want to help somebody. And you have your own ideas and your own, conceptions of how to do that. And you don't necessarily kind of read the room, look at what's happening, what's not happening in your community, and let that be your guide. And a lot of times people rely too much on their personal instinct about what's needed instead of really doing a deep dive in the community. So this is what I would suggest. If you know you want to provide some help and create a nonprofit, then start asking questions about what's working, what even exists in our community, because you may think it doesn't exist, but the service may exist and people just don't know about it. So start doing like a landscape scan, or sometimes called a needs assessment, and figure out where the needs are. And to understand where the needs are, you got to understand what is working, what is successful, and what's not. And I really recommend that you do your research, you do some deep dives, and ask yourself, what's great about how they run this organization? Who do they serve? Are they doing that in an effective and a culturally sensitive way? Like, where there are places where you can kind of fill in where what currently exists isn't happening or isn't working. And this isn't to say like you're trying to attack people that exist, but every organization can't do it all and can't be it all. And so if you see an opportunity where you've done your assessment and you see that these organizations over here have this going on, but they're missing out on this type of work that they don't do because I've seen it work in this industry, but they're not doing it in this industry. So I'm going to like disrupt this industry and do something different. I'm talking in general like ideas, but I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say, right? So I'm going to always use the field that I work in as an example because I just really want y'all to create nonprofits to solve a lot of what's going on in child welfare. But another example could be around this idea of coaching. So coaching is catching on in a lot of different industries. I know it's really big in the business industry, especially with Fortune 500 companies, like the importance of coaching their management, coaching their leadership, and how it can help bring success, how coaching can help identify your internal strengths and help you reach your goals. Well, coaching just isn't really big in the social services or child welfare field. So if you were to bring coaching to child welfare clients, how about coaching parents who have lost their children or are at risk of losing their children? How about adding a component of coaching to other case management or other things you may do to support parents? And that's something that just hasn't been done. So that's an example of how you can take something from one industry and put it in another industry that's not working and disrupt that industry. And the reason why it's so important that you understand, first of all, that you're filling a gap, and second of all, that you understand how and why you're filling a gap is because you got to distinguish yourself. So you're creating an organization from scratch. You're creating an organization where nobody has heard of you before, and then boom, here you are. Then you want to be able to position yourself as, hey, we're needed because this doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist in this way anywhere else. That's why it's so important that you examine the gaps first. You do your needs assessment first, or your community scan, whatever you want to call it first. But the other reason is, why go through the hassle of creating something that already exists? Why have blood, sweat, and tears over starting a nonprofit, because that's literally what it will take, and it already exists. So when you start, make sure you have everything you need. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video my nonprofit startup workbook, but that's for people who've filled out the paperwork and are already on their way. If you're still planning, dreaming, visioning, and you're not sure how you want to take this thing, then my nonprofit business bundle is a good fit for you because it'll help you plan out your mission, help you plan out your financial resources, help you sketch out your programs. So you can check that out in the link that I put in the description box below. Second reason you may consider starting a nonprofit is to access resources, right? So here's the thing about nonprofits. A lot of people assume that the only way to do something charitable is to open a nonprofit. And a lot of times, if people don't know what I do and then I share it, a lot of people will say, I have an idea for a nonprofit, or I've always wanted to do this. And so I feel like in our society, at least in the US, there's this thing of, one day I'm going to create something great. When I'm settled, I'm going to start a nonprofit to help somebody do this. And it almost feels like you're not legitimate, or you're not really doing something until you actually create the nonprofit structure. But here's a little secret that I want to tell you. You can do a whole lot of good for a whole lot of people and never be a nonprofit. Never be structured as a nonprofit, never have a business structure, none of that. You can still do that. So I know your question is, well, then what's the point of having a nonprofit? It really comes to your financial resources. So being able to access financial resources to scale, and if you're raising money, to get a reprieve from taxes, to get a break off of taxes. If you know you're doing that work really to help somebody else, then you want to get tax exempt status so you're not charged income tax for that. So you may be in a position where you've been doing great things for years. I have some coaching clients who they've been doing work in the community and giving people money and providing services for years. And now they decide that they want to have a nonprofit, but it's because they want to scale up. It's because they want to stop burning holes in their pockets and they want to help more people. And in order to do that, they have to create the structure to begin to do more work for more people. So when I say when it's time to scale, I just mean serve more people, get bigger. That's what I mean by scaling. And so once you get your nonprofit structure and you go for 501c3 status, then you can access grants. Then you can more easily get donations with a lot less hassle. That's why it can be important for you to start a nonprofit, to really access the financial resources, to really accelerate work you may have already been doing. I just want to throw a little caveat out here. So again, you still don't need to set up your own nonprofit, even if you want to access financial resources. So you could have a fiscal sponsor, and that fiscal sponsor collect donations on your behalf or accept grants on your behalf. So it doesn't even require you starting the nonprofit. You could go under the umbrella of another 501c3 organization. So that's another reason you may want to do it, to access resources, but just keep in mind, it's not necessary for you to start an organization if you want to access more money. And the third reason that you want to start a nonprofit is for community legacy. I'm gonna break this down a little bit. Okay, so earlier in this video, I talked about how people sometimes start their nonprofits and they're coming from like a person-centered view. So a lot of times it's very personal. You may have experienced something and that's what your nonprofit's mission is about, or you may have spent a lot of time working with people who have experienced something. So it is deeply personal to you, and something may have changed and shifted in your life and you want to create that change and shift for somebody else, right? So that can be incredibly personal for people, and that can be the driver of what they do. A lot of times people get it mixed up with their own personal agendas or aspirations, because they're like, I want to go full time with my nonprofit. I want to get paid. I just want to get paid doing what I love. But the one thing I like to tell people is that starting a nonprofit isn't necessarily a personal wealth strategy. Now, I'm not a tax accountant, so just take this as just general information. There may be benefits to you starting a nonprofit if you want to donate a certain way. I'm not getting into it. What I'm saying is, if you want to start a nonprofit because you want to get paid full time and you think like you're going to retire from your nonprofit and you're just going to get residual money from your nonprofit, and since you founded it, it's going to be your baby and you're going to be entitled to certain things created through the nonprofit, you got to slow down and back it up a little bit. One thing you have to remember is that a nonprofit is an independent organization and it is controlled by the board. It is not controlled by one person, right? And so the board as a collective makes decisions, and it's the board at that time, which may shift, adjust, and evolve from when you started. So you lose a sense of control once you incorporate your nonprofit, right? And you can't necessarily dictate what happens. So it's less removed from you. It's not a personal wealth strategy. It's a way you can gain money by getting paid, but it's not something where you're like, okay, I'm going to have residual money from that. It is more so a community legacy thing. It's more so you see something missing in a community. It could be a geographic or a place-based community. It could be a community of people with like experiences, right? You want to make a mark on a community. You want to leave this earth having made a mark, right? And for that reason, and you want to have a structure in place so that the work continues. You want to have a structure in place so that that gap that you're trying to fill won't widen or will even become even narrower. Oh Lord, I can't say that word, but y'all got what I meant, right? So you want to make sure that whatever you put in place is to benefit the community and it lasts for as long as you want it to last. That's community legacy. Not, I want to create this because I want to make sure that I have money and my kids always have access to the money through the nonprofit. That's just not a nonprofit is not the right structure for you if you're trying to do that. I'm not trying to deter you from having a nonprofit. I'm not trying to deter you from getting paid for your nonprofit. I'm just saying that if you want to get paid and compensated, there are layers to it, and you are not entitled to anything just because you're a founder. If you are confused by some of the things that I'm saying here, I am linking a video above that talks about how to get paid as a founder for your organization. It can break it down a little bit more for you. So when you think about your nonprofit, you want to start it because you want to create a community legacy. You want 20 years from now, your community to be changed, to be better, because you decided to start something new and fresh and you had a great idea to do something different. That's about community legacy. So that's a reason that you should start your nonprofit. Was this helpful? Let me know in the comments. Also, just share your experiences in the comments. I want the community that follows Boss on a Budget to learn from each other, grow alongside each other. So meet each other in the comments, say hello, do all the things. If you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you visit me at bossonabudget.com, and I will see you in the next video.